when the stream like actually went live, I think.
Right, which is it's faster than when mine does. YouTube slower has that delay. Preview. Well, no, it's buffering.
Yeah, no, we're getting a ton of dropped frames right now. Let's see what I can do about this.
Oh, hey, at this plane, we're having technical difficulties. In other words, welcome to the pod.
That kind of helped. Okay.
What an odd way to test that out.
So Shiguru, inspired by Juru using his Kiramental to shape the gems, decided, hey, why don't I try that on my weaponry? Why don't I try extending up right before it hits Sai now?
Like an idiot. So we're still getting there. Wow.
Yeah, no, showing it off. But
Right.
we don't speak Japanese. We're not the people who translated this. We don't know what.
So I gotta notice.
All right, let's try this again.
All right, so we're back and
No,
now it says no data.
no, this isn't working.
This
This is not.
difficulties. All right, hopefully that worked and we're up back and live and running. So far, so good. No drop frames, no nothing. So, hooray, we're back. Problem temporarily solved. Yes, we are live. So,
Okay, if you say so.
who knows how much of that stuff is there and not, so we apologize for the issues that we had.
Alright, welcome to the Super Prepared Podcast.
Well, normally we don't have this bad of an issue with it. For whatever reason, everything decided to go wrong with it today, but at least we now have an interim fix if it happens in the future. But yes, Blue's a dumbass.
Okay, but who's the bigger asshole here? Blue, who did that, or when their lunch that they ordered arrives and Blue goes down to get his hot dog, the fucking director ate the middle of it.
Yeah,
and then put it back in the Raptor and wrapped it up to look like it was whole.
See, I expected that to actually play out a little bit differently. Like, I expected that to be more in line with what this episode was about. The main purpose of the episode. Like, I have expected it to be, because the girl got it and she's the one who delivered it, so she ate half the hot dog because it was his. Stalkers do strange shit. And then they never comes up again, so I'm like, yeah, that's kind of an asshole move.
And like he did it in the most dickish way possible. Where again, he ate the middle of it and then stuck the two ends back in the wrapper to make them look like they were whole again. What's up?
That is an odd suggestion that YouTube is giving me.
What did YouTube say?
The stream's current bitrate is higher than the recommended bitrate.
Can we just ignore the feedback we're getting from YouTube for now and actually watch the playback ourselves later?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do because with this I know where the bit rate is now, so I know what that's affecting. So if the bit rate's too high, which I don't see why that's an issue, but whatever, we can adjust accordingly.
So the team is watching this idol on the internet who her gimmick is that like pretends to be a ghost and she only does her videos at like 2 in the morning.
That's some Misa Amane bullshit.
And yeah, she's one of Shiguru's stalkers. I say one of as though there are more, but like we don't know.
We don't. It's kind of okay to assume he's got more than one. He is exceedingly popular, so it would be safe to say he has one, but apparently she was the more disturbing one.
She's the proactive one.
Yeah, actively showing
Like
up with
showing up on his film sets, proposing to him.
while holding a body pillow of him.
Letting him know that she's investing in the stock market so that if he decides to quit his job, she can support him.
Which, I mean, at least he's being thought of. His future is secure, at least attempted. But it's creepy.
So, Yodami Hime is her stage name, I guess.
I wonder who picked that.
So
Pretty sure it was the bad guys.
Red, Green, and Yellow and Mabushina all watch it at 2 a.m. And then she fucking possesses them through the screen by throwing her concert tickets into their bodies. Except Mabushina is made of rock, so it just kind of bounces off of her. So she's fine.
Like, that was a nice touch.
The others are like fall asleep or whatever.
Like, that's a nice touch, given the fact that that's something that's kind of a throwaway thing that we know it, but we don't really think about it. Our brain just goes, she's an alien. And then it's moments like that goes, oh yeah, she's made of rock, so yeah, that wouldn't have worked. So it's set up really well, and it doesn't seem entirely forced and contrived. It's just playing off something.
Yeah, no. I also love the way Sayo puts it, like, oh, it wasn't able to penetrate your crystalline skin or whatever. It's like, Sayo, just say she's a fucking rock.
Right. Like, I get the whole gemstone thing, but no, she's a freaking blue rock with gold paint and a bra on her head. I can't unsee it. It got brought up to me. I cannot unsee it.
I know. I see it too. But to hear someone say it out loud is admitting to it.
I will admit to Toei. I will admit to Toei's fuck ups.
So, they go meet the stalker, and she is super excited to see Shiguru. And yeah, it's like, hey, you see any weirdos in mass lately? And she's like, oh yeah, one of them came, visited me, and I made a weird, dark, evil contract with him.
Because of course you did, you freaking gothic idiot.
So he promised to make her a star, and she agreed because she felt like she needed to be a star in order to be good enough for Shiguru to marry her. And all this comes down to the fact that, like, a year ago, he tried breaking up with her by telling her, like, look, okay, I'm not going to marry you. But what he said was, like, hey, listen, I'm not mad at you because you're one of my fans, but, like, I need to focus on my career right now.
Right. It literally came down to, not right now, I'm not ready.
Like, yeah, it just came down to, like, his choice of words made it seem like not now kind of thing. Like there's still hope for later. So she hasn't given up that hope and is trying to has been trying to make herself worthy of him.
Which is something very much a stalker would do. And some relationships kind of slide that way.
And so the gemstones all give Shigeru shit for, not being more straightforward and blunt and beating around the bush because he was trying to act cool.
Because that, I mean, it fits with his character that that's something he would do. But I find it funny that the gemstones were the ones who called him on his bullshit. The
Yeah,
things that have been on Earth
like,
for just a handful of
uh,
months.
yeah, a couple of months now. like, I'm still waiting for the part where the gemstones being sentient makes sense to me. And this episode seems to be the one where they are the most active, but I still don't feel it.
Right, because this scene literally could have been done by anybody else. Anybody else. He, and this is now that we're 10 episodes in, the issue, and it's going on break, so I kind of want to get this out of the way now. What, aside from the fact of funding the building and the excavation, what the fuck's the dude there for? The asshole who ate the hot dog.
The director,
Yeah, what purpose does he serve aside from funding the fucking building?
he runs the organization that is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Uh,
there are quite a few characters in this show that seem unnecessary for the roles that they have. Mabushina seems unnecessary in the fact that we have sentient vehicles and somebody else to run the organization. We have the organization guy who's useless because he does nothing but tell him where to go.
so,
And then we
yeah,
have the sentient gemstones who are unnecessary because we have Mabushina.
it's like the thing about the director is that, all right, he's running this organization that, all right, they're giving the gems a storage facility, they're performing maintenance on them, they're keeping it on the city to let the Kiramagers know when a monster attacks. But all of that amounts to a very minor impact on each episode, as
Right.
far as we've seen.
Like, because we've had this similar setup in Go Buster, where there was a dedicated team who took care of all the equipment, organization, everything, and they worked for it. It had a better structure and purpose than this seems to.
The mechs weren't sentient, they were piloted by sentient AI, but they themselves were not sentient and required constant maintenance
Right.
because they were hand built machines, not magic crystals from an alien planet.
And like the whole organization that the Go Busters worked for was literally designed to stop the threat. It wasn't just some random jeweler who happened to have met an alien king however many years ago. Aside from just being there and looking funny, I don't really see a purpose to his character yet.
So so the monster pulls off its big plan where, it's concert time, and so all the people that have been given an invitation are possessed and are zombie walking towards the stage. Sayo, who's actually getting shit done this episode, uh, is able to trace where the signal is coming from and determines the the onset curtain that is transmitting it and fucking destroys it to free everyone from the mind control so that they don't show up at the concert venue, which turns out the stadium was the monster itself.
So I have a question, and for me, it just comes down to how long were they at the stadium? The
Long enough to go
the
from
villain. How long
the
were they
villain.
at it before they came out on stage? Because during any point of that, should they have known that she fired shots at the fucking banner?
Oh no, she fired that literally 2 seconds before she bragged to them that about how she solved it because it is still burning behind her.
Well, right. It's
as
like,
she brags.
but based on so based on that,
Based
and
on that, how
this
did they
is
not see her?
one. How did they not see her? And two, how did she get there in a point where, or how did she? Because she ran into them and freed them all while they were, aside from a small handful, reaching the stadium, which is like 2 seconds before the concert started.
But I want to know how long they expected it to take people to get there, because she pulled the trigger in the middle, like the monster pulled the trigger in the middle of the night, and it's like almost midday when they go to do the fight.
That's a good point too. Like there are inconsistencies with this show, which I don't want to nitpick because it may be intentional as a let's poke fun at stuff. Because again, this is very much a fucking parody series. I don't care what anybody says. So like, I don't want to take everything in it too seriously, but at the same time, they're playing it off as a legitimate show. So at the same, they kind of have to. And it's a
See, you say that, but then the crux of the episode comes down to how the monster is like clinging onto the stalker's back, and so Blue is like, "I will cut you down," and he remembers how his hot dog had the middle eaten
you
out of
know of
it,
it.
so he just imagines his blade with the middle taken out so that it harmlessly goes around the stalker and only hits the monster.
So he's figured out Deno's Hisatsu attack. That was a dumb joke. I get it. Uh, um,
Like, I thought that like the whole hot dog thing was like, that's a weird detail, but hey, okay, got a little bit of character. Now we know the director can't be trusted around food. Like, nope, that was actually foreshadowing for something.
like, and this is something that Sentai I feel has a very bad trope with of that type of foreshadowing. Because as soon as we saw the blade attack, I'm like, that's going to be a key thing in this episode. Wasn't thinking that much about the hot dog, but turned out to be. Like,
Same though.
Sentai is very, very bad about doing things at the beginning of an episode that are gonna be majorly relevant to how they win, or progressing that particular set of the plot along. And I'm not entirely thrilled with it because it gets to a
I would
point
say
where it's getting to the point where it just kind of comes across as just lazy.
usually it's fine, but this one in particular felt a bit lazy to me. It felt a bit forced.
Like, the only thing that kind of saves it is the fact of, hey, I got the idea because Red was doing this crap, so I wanted to see if I could too. That's fair. So I can give it that bit of leeway, but they could have done this like a few episodes ago, and then him mastering it trying to master it over the course of a couple of episodes, I think would have worked better than just, hey, look what I can do. It's going to be necessary. Like, I kind
And
of
then,
have expected it to go like the same way it did with the beginning, to where the monster turns and he he dissolves it before it hits the girl.
so he does that, like he hits the monster, he doesn't hit his stalker, and she falls over, and Sayo, a nurse, rushes to her aid, like, "Hey, are you okay?" Remember that.
Yeah, that as soon as it happened, I'm like, yep, that's a thing. It was
Yeah, oh yeah,
it
no.
didn't
As
in
soon as they do the camera zoom in of like, oh,
oh yeah, it's very much a,
it's
that.
very clear. It's like, oh, yep, that's happening. So we get into the mech fight where we get the worst game of whack-a-mole ever.
God damn.
Uh,
I half
and then
expected I half expected that to be something that Shigeru just goes, I know what to do, and then he just kind of takes over, because they kind of done that with Senna last episode. But apparently that was not a trend that was continuing into this episode.
Oh, it did, just in a different way. Oh no, wait, Sayo was the one who thought of that because
Yeah,
she's the one getting
Sayo did.
shit done this episode.
Yeah, Sayo and Senna, because right after the game of Whack-A-Mole, Burn Blacker or Smoke Joggy shows up in his dino form, and Senna goes, "Oh yeah, thanks for bringing that. We're gonna use that."
Nope.
Yep.
Garuza figured out his job mental and can maintain control of his dino train. So he goes to fire his laser beam at them, and then Sayo's just like, "Hey, why don't we split our mech in half so that the beam doesn't hit us?"
The
And
sad,
they just do that, and the beam passes through the middle and hits the monster.
like,
And
and
then Garuza's like, "Yeah, that was clever. All right, I'm gonna peace out."
oops, I accidentally killed the villain for you. Which is not the first time he's done that, unfortunately, and awesomely at the same time. I like these episodes where it really doesn't come down to the heroes defeating the monster, even if it purely does end up being by accident that the villains kill the monster. Though it was weird to
So,
see the mech split in half and start to turn back into stones, because I'm like, yeah, no, Red's the major piece of that, and it kind of split Red in half to do it.
no, don't think about that though. Kiramental can reshape the gems, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know what the rules are.
Kiramental, good for emergency amputations, apparently.
See, this made sense when Tokujo was doing it because it was literally imagination. It was literally just a school ground game of pretend.
Right. It's so like this being a legitimate thing is just so fucking strange. This is to me, this is Tokuger if you wanted to make fun of Tokuger. It's
So after the fight, Shigeru goes to properly dump his stalker, and she kicks him in the gut. We all know where she was really aiming.
yeah.
She kicks him in the gut for scaring her like that and almost cutting her, which is appropriate.
Yes,
Like
100%.
fucking seriously.
Is one of those. You were supposed to save me, but you literally were gonna cut me down, bite me.
And now she's crushing on Sayo, who was there for her apparently.
It doesn't take much for a stalker.
Sayo though immediately cuts that shit down. Like, no, not happening. I can't date you.
But when you think about how it was worded, it does come across as the same way that, because it actually is 100% comes across as the same way that Shigeru did it, of not right now, because she goes, no, you need to sparkle more first. So hey, we may end up
But then
having, so in the future we may have our first lesbian couple.
In the credits scene, though, the stalker tries like going to Sayo, like, "One-sama, give me a checkup," and so I was just like, "Nope, out, out of my office. No remorse."
Like, which was funny. Is like, I do love the ending scenes for this. But yeah, like the way they kind of played it off is like Sayo doing the same thing that Shigeru did, just better, I guess. Like,
I don't expect this to come up again.
I don't either, but it would be a nice touch on Toei's part to have a like. And this is one of those things. Like, I get irritated with forced inclusion. Like when it comes across as forced, it just seems bad and pandering. But the way they did this, it would be it wouldn't come across as forced if they included her just to have that, appeal to the various different sexual orientations. Considering there are literally blogs dedicated to it, and not in a good way. So at least this would have a healthy outlet for them.
So,
Like,
uh,
the episode itself wasn't bad. Like,
no, it
overall.
was a
Like,
fine episode, but not one of the better ones so far.
and I feel mainly because of the setup.
I just think in general the execution wasn't great, except for Sayo. Sayo was literally getting she was doing like ricochet shots that you would expect Yellow to be doing, but like, man, she was getting shit done this episode. The only thing Blue did was make a bunch of reckless decisions that worked out for him.
Right, while trying to hide from his stalker. Though I will
Yeah,
admit,
he
this
didn't
is.
even want to confront her at first. He tried making Sayo go do it alone.
And she literally drug him to her. I will admit, having thinking back on it, there's something we did not get this episode. We did not get a roll call.
Roll call?
Yeah, there was no roll call.
Yeah, I just realized it when you said we didn't get something. It's like, what did we not? Oh,
Because
yeah, that's cool.
the rest of the team were out for everything else, and Sayo and Shigeru didn't do the solos like they normally would have, and then do the whole group thing when they got back together. It's like,
that's something this episode's credit though. The roll call didn't feel missed.
right. Like, it was one of those, like,
Everything flowed naturally without it.
It was one of those, I noticed it when I expected it to happen. You know, right before the stage turned into a giant fucking kaiju. So it was like, it was one of those in my head. I went, oh, okay. So we're not doing it today. And then it just played on the rest of the way fine. To me, and it was nice that okay, Springtime Bonnie, sorry, I looked over and saw a comment from Springtime Bonnie. Technically third gay Power Rangers character.
Third? We're the first two.
Yeah, that's a... Out of curiosity, I want to know that.
Like, we made fun of Garo a lot, but, like, that's not actually canon.
Right, because he's got a wife and a kid now. And given the fact that you used Power Rangers, I don't think you meant Power Rangers. I think you just used that just for comparison, I guess, or ease. And because most of us know this stuff as Power Rangers, not as Sentai.
But if you are talking about Power Rangers, then that is actually different from this.
Yeah, because if
like, yes, it's the same thing, but that is a different like studio. That's a different production. That is like basically a different universe.
Right. So, if she comments back, I'll read them. If not, they'll be in the live replay, which should be running if you watch this. But yeah, it's like even though like half the cast was out for this episode, all right, yeah. So the Purple Solar Ranger from the comic and Yellow Ranger from the reboot movie, which those are entirely different universe. As in those
actual Power Rangers.
Yeah, this is Super Sentai.
Is a different universe than Power Rangers.
So, in terms of Sentai, this may actually be the first openly bisexual character in the show. Which I'm assuming that's what this is meant to allude to, because she literally went from dating a man to wanting to date a woman.
Oh,
so
yeah, no, the stalker is just straight up bisexual. She clearly doesn't care. She swings it both ways.
So
the question is, what about Sayo? Would Sayo actually entertain her courtship, or
Right, and that's kind of the only reason why I kind of want that to continue to play out somehow, because that would be something I would be interested in seeing in terms of how Toei handles it. Because let's be real, Toei is infamous for handling things badly, especially delicate things like that. Um, so we have some few more comments, and this is leading up to the fact that we will not be doing a Kiramager episode next week.
because there isn't one next week? In fact, there isn't going to be a new Kiramager episode for the next 3 weeks. Uh, they will be airing director's cut editions of episode 0 and like the first couple of episodes, I think. So there might be a bit of new content in there we haven't seen yet, but ultimately we're not going to devote an entire podcast to that. So we'll be talking about something else for the next few weeks if we do one on Tuesdays.
Um,
Drago and I are talking about doing the Power Rangers podcast for the first half of season 2 of Beast Morphers.
um, I mean, there's various things that we could talk about through just ideas and tropes and stuff like that on stuff if we really wanted to do one on Tuesday. Um, but the reason why there won't be one next week is because yes, there is something new airing, but we've already seen it and we've already covered it because they're doing episode 0, which we've already covered.
And even if there's like 3 minutes of extra footage in there that we haven't seen before, like it's not worth it.
Right. And then with Kamen Rider, it's just recap episodes, which they may put in new information within it.
I don't expect new information. I expect more of like a voiceover from the actors of like, oh, I remember this. This made me angry.
Right. Or just one of those like I was stuck in your head when this happened. Um
There might be like something, but again, probably not enough for us to just do a podcast on it. If there are new materials, like we'll cover them when the shows return proper.
right. As for that, beyond that we still have to kind of sit down and decide on what all we want to do beyond Ryan Drago doing the podcast for Beast Morphers. But again, we'll see as it goes on. So there may not be one on Tuesday, but there'll probably be at least one on Wednesday for whatever is decided. Because, like I said, there's various tokusatsu or just tokusatsu talk in general that can be covered. But beyond that, we'll see where it goes forward. Any last minute comments?
No, I think I'm sad. Not a bad episode, but not a great one overall. It was an okay episode.
Right. To me, it was a little bit funner than I was expecting with as tropey and odd as this was. But yeah, very middle of the ground, which is odd for which here lately that's odd for an episode 10 because usually episode 10 is like where the big curveball comes in that sets up the first actual main arc.
Yeah, no, I wasn't really expecting something this tropey. Like based on the episode preview we got last week, like I was expecting something a bit more serious than this.
Well, that'll teach us with this series, huh?
I guess so.
Like literally until things actually get oh my god serious in the show, I'm really not going to take anything that happens in the previews as something that is serious. But all in all, I was like, this show is still enjoyable to watch, even with its very, very tropey parody-esque. But thank you all for listening. Like I said, we may or may not be back next Tuesday, but we will be back tomorrow for Kamen Rider 01. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.